Ballyclare District Historical Memorial Association. The Narrow Water Massacre. Northern Ireland is not free from terrorists. Instead, they live among us and are strategically placed within the Sinn Féin government, a government that regales in romanticising IRA terrorists as revolutionaries, with no speak about the murderous killings they carried out on innocent civilians throughout the UK. The IRA have been given free passes of freedom to throw it in the faces of those they have murdered, their families and survivors of their barbaric atrocities. There has been no terrorist organisation that bombed the UK more than the IRA, yet they now hold government positions. This year marked the anniversary of the tragic event known as the Narrow Water Massacre. This horrific act of violence was carried out on the 27th of August 1979 by the IRA that resulted in the deaths of 18 soldiers, with a further 20 severely injured. It was the IRA's South Armagh Brigade that orchestrated the ambush on a British Army convoy using 2 powerful roadside bombs. The terrorists demonstrated their cruelty by positioning one bomb to target the soldiers directly and placing the second where they thought the reinforcement personnel would arrive to establish an incident command. These tactics were aimed to maximise fatalities and were used repeatedly in the IRA's vicious and violent campaign during the Northern Ireland conflict. The IRA attack took place on the A2 road near Narrow Water Castle, just outside Warren Point in County Down. The road and castle straddled the northern bank of the Newry River, which acted as the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. The IRA terrorists positioned themselves on the Cooley Peninsula in County Louth, as they knew their position across the border would hinder the pursuit by security forces. On that fateful afternoon, a convoy consisting of a Land Rover and 2 4-ton lorries transporting soldiers from the 2nd Battalion Parachute Regiment travelled from Ballykinler Barracks to Newry. Despite the known danger due to IRA activity, the soldiers used the roads sporadically to avoid establishing a predictable pattern. At around 4:40 p.m, as the convoy passed Narrow Water Castle, an £800 fertiliser bomb hidden within a trailer loaded with straw bales was remotely detonated by the waiting IRA members across the river. The blast obliterated the last lorry in the convoy, propelling it through the air before it crashed on its side, instantly killing 6 paratroopers on board, scattering their bodies across the road. Immediately after the explosion, the IRA assailants opened fire on the soldiers who were attempting to assist their comrades. Reinforcements, including army medics, were dispatched to the scene. Knowing the army response tactics, the IRA predicted an incident command point would be set up at a stone gateway across the road. Approximately 32 minutes after the first bomb detonated, a second £800 bomb hidden in milk pails at the gateway was remotely triggered, killing a further 12 soldiers in a second horrific blast. The scene was described as one that no human being should ever witness. Human remains were scattered all over the road, with parts of bodies being found in the river and hanging from trees. The IRA claimed victory, but the Narrow Water Massacre left an indelible mark of horror and loss. It was the deadliest attack on the armed forces and the biggest loss of life suffered by the Parachute Regiment since World War II. The attack highlighted the deadly ingenuity of the IRA's tactics and underlined the challenges faced by security forces. While Brendan Burns and Joe Brennan, the IRA terrorists responsible for the attack, were detained, lack of evidence led to their release. Dr. James Donovan, the founder and former director of the Irish State Forensic Laboratory, was surprised that no one had been prosecuted. And he stated, "I thought the evidence was good, on the basis that they gave false names and addresses. They were arrested on a motorcycle that had been near the scene of the detonation. There were cigarette butts, saliva samples. One of them had fern material in his underpants. On summation, the evidence was good." Brendan Burns died in 1988 when a bomb he was handling exploded prematurely. Joe Brennan was arrested and jailed for 16 years in November 1995 for another mortar attack on an army observation post. He was released in 1999 under the Belfast Agreement and still lives in County Armagh. The massacre remains yet another unresolved terrorist attack, a poignant reminder of the brutality of terrorism against our security forces and the innocent civilians of Northern Ireland, most of whom have received no justice for the killings and loss caused by the IRA terrorists. Instead, they have to listen to Mary Lou MacDonald tell them their murders were justified, while Michelle O'Neill states there was no alternative. There is no justification for murder. There is always an alternative. In memory of the 18 soldiers who lost their lives, a dark reminder of the senseless terrorist acts and the lasting pain inflicted on families and communities. Lieutenant Colonel David Blair, aged 40. Major Peter Fursman, aged 35. Warrant Officer Walter Beard, aged 31. Sergeant Ian Rogers, aged 31. Corporal Nicholas Andrews, aged 23. Corporal John Giles, aged 22. Corporal Leonard Jones, aged 26. Lance Corporal Chris Ireland, aged 25. Lance Corporal Victor MacLeod, aged 24. Lance Corporal Donald Blair, aged 23. Private Gary Barnes, aged 18. Private Raymond Dunn, aged 20. Private Robert England, aged 23. Private Jeffrey Jones, aged 18. Private Thomas Vance, aged 23. Private Robert Vaughan Jones, aged 18. Private Anthony Wood, aged 19. Private Michael Woods, aged